Hello, everyone, and welcome to another FFUK the Pod special, and it's an international break special this week. And I've got two very special guests, as always. So let me bring them in. I've got with me Harvey and Roni Friel. How are you doing, guys? Harvey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, doing good. Good to be here. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, and Roni, nice to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, likewise, Chris. It's great to be here after the humdrum of the international break. It's great to talk some fantasy football again.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to get straight into it. I've got some questions. We're going to discuss your start to the season, your both of your teams that you follow in the Premier League, and also let's look at. And then we'll finish by looking ahead to game week 8. So yeah, let's get cracking. Okay, so first off, Harvey, how many points did you get in game week 7?
Got 55.
Pretty good, pretty solid score. And Roni, what about you? What did you score?
I believe it was 63. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, that is good. Okay, so you're on the rise. Well, no, Harvey, we're coming to you first. So I had a little look at your team, and you've only done 2 transfers all season so far.
Yeah,
which is pretty amazing, and you're doing really well as well. So it's not like it's one or the other. You've got both. You're sitting in 18th in the main league. So just quickly, what do you put it down to so far?
Patience. Just I picked a team at the beginning that I thought was good for 5 weeks, and I thought, unlike a lot of other seasons, what I'm going to do this is go back to my beginnings in this sort of game and go, I'm going to give the players that I think have 5 weeks, and see where I am. And I didn't make a transfer, I think, for the first 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. And then I swapped the 2 people that needed changing. And it was touch and go for a bit because there were a couple of weeks where, these people aren't, it might not work, or there's all the content creators going, you should get this person, get that person, the classic, this is a must have, this person's essential. And I thought, I don't think this year is one of those years. I don't think there's a template. I don't think there's I think you just pick people who you think are going to score points and you go with it. And I'm kind of all about number of returns. So I think Watkins will get 3 returns in the first 6. I'm going to see if he does. And that was kind of it, really. So yeah, okay. Patience and not reading a lot of Twitter.
We'll probably link those 2 things, I think. All right, and then, so it's obviously worked as well, so that's really good news. So, Ron, conversely, you've shown slightly less patience, I would say, and you used your wild card in game week 4, same week as me. So why was that? How's it gone since the wild card? And also, you didn't put Haaland in on your wild card, did you?
No, I didn't. So it's interesting listening to Harvey there, because I think we've always had very similar thoughts on this game, and in terms of what might work, what might not, So I suppose before the season started this year, I gave it a little bit more thought than I had last year, a little bit more bandwidth, and there were three crucial areas for me that I thought, okay, before I even start assembling the team, making the decisions, the transfers, and getting caught up in it all, what does success look like? And I thought, well, success this year is not going to look like a number. The number's going to take care of itself. It's going to be the input to the number. So I thought behaviours, I thought team value, and then I thought return on interest, stroke variance, in terms of the selection criteria for the people I was looking at, And the behaviours was really interesting, Harvey, because that's the first thing for a reason there. It's so easy for us all to get caught up within the X sphere, is that what we call it now, as opposed to the Twitter sphere, the WhatsApp group. You have a lot of confirmation bias going on, and I had the conversation with myself. Start of the season, I'm not going to get involved in that. Therefore, I thought, Chris, that the output would be a little bit more patience. However, after the first couple of game weeks, I found myself wedded to Newcastle, found myself wedded to Henderson, watched Muniz with XG through the roof and didn't seem to be able to hit a barn door. Barco gets transferred on a season-long loan deal, and I thought, and I'm going to need to do something about this. So there was a plan. I mean, the plan was game week 6, to be honest. Game week 6 wildcard is what I'd always set up. The game week 4 was a reaction to the Newcastle issue, particularly their attacking returns, Isaac and Gordon specifically. But then it was wedded to the team value piece. I was looking at Rhea, don't usually spend so much on a goalkeeper, but returns through the roof, the value going through the roof. Thought I need to get involved whilst I still can. Rodgers on the eye test against Man U, if you guys remember the 0-0 game, no returns, but looked absolutely phenomenal. Trent, XGA was going through the roof those first few game weeks. Thought I want to be involved. Rico Lewis is getting played out of position at City. You're thinking sometimes he was up overtaking Haaland. You want to get involved. So and then add to that Diaz, what you just said about Watkins and Mbeumo. Just thought this is it. It's time. If I don't do it now, I'm not going to be able to afford to do it. So yeah, that was the story, I suppose, of the wildcard and why the game week 6 plan became the game week 4 plan. And I must say that the returns have gone from a really poor start, 4 million when I pulled the trigger, to just outside the top million at the moment, green arrows since the wildcard. So it feels like the right decision. Be a little bit dynamic.
Yeah, and I think it shows that it depends on your team. All these situations, it's easy to give out advice, but actually it depends what your team is like. And your team sounds more like mine, Ronnie. I had treble Newcastle and all sorts of issues with other players, so it had to be done. Anyway, so let's move on to another question. And we mentioned about non-Haaland, and it's going to come up a few times in this pod. Yeah. So Harvey, you're also a non-Haaland owner, shall we call it? So my question to you is, how have you selected your captain each week? Because it's kind of easy if you've got Haaland and you just go Haaland. So
it's weird. I think I've always thought this the way around. I mean, I still come from that. Like, I don't really like captaining a forward. I prefer to captain a midfielder. You've got the potential of 2 extra points. And I thought at the beginning of the season, I just thought, do I think Haaland's going to score in every game? Yeah. But do I think he's going to get like 3 goals in every game? No. So I actually thought in the first 6 games, 5-6 games, he'd get sort of 4 or 5 goals. And that wouldn't bother me because I've got Salah. If Salah got 1 goal and 3 bonus, Haaland's got to get 3 goals, And I thought, I reckon I can match him in the points way, but I'll better him because of points per million, and I'll be able to get in what we used to call a freemium, rather than having Haaland and another decent one and loads of crap players. And I thought that might be my bonus at the beginning of the year, and I wanted to see how that went. And weirdly, now I'm looking at a wild card. I have no intention of getting Haaland in still, because as far as I'm concerned, I think it's working.
Yeah. Well, it is clearly working. There's no doubt about it. It's just
how
does it work? I think for 38 weeks, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what it is I look more. I do the returns thing. So rather than how many points does a guy have, I look at how many times does a player return. So, and the top sort of players are all the big guys. So the people that have all returned 5 games or more out of 7, other than Mbeumo, I think, and maybe Johnson now. All the others, it's Saka, it's Palmer, it's Salah, it's Haaland, So you are paying for it. Without Haaland, you can have more of those. And if you have Haaland, I think it crippled my team, because what I was finding, particularly when I looked at an Instagram group with a lot of younger creators, and they're like all up for this stuff, but every week they're really upset because some 4.5 million or 5 million player isn't performing, and I'm going, well, what did you expect? They're 4.5 million for a reason. And if you've got a team full of them so that you can have Haaland, Salah and Trent, then all that's going to happen is if they have a bad week, your team's screwed. And so I kind of stick to that. I still think at the moment it's there. And also, I might wait on the wild card, because if a template turns up, I'm happy to get it. Because, you know,
you can jump on
my
it.
word for template is common sense. Why wouldn't you want a team full of the people that are getting all the points? Differentials are great, but you only want 2 or 3 of them. You don't want 11 of them. So that was my thought, really. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. So Ronnie, on you also have gone no Haaland. So just your perspective on it.
Yeah, similar to Harv, to be honest. So it was just a numbers game, truth be told. As I said at the start, behaviours were one of the key things that I didn't want to get drawn into, and I wanted to be really quite firm on the why around the decision making, you know. And the Haaland piece, when you just take it back to statistics, forget Haaland's name, right? This is my thing for this season. I don't want to even think about the players' names. They're just labels. I'm just interested in the return that they're given, you know. Stats with the eye test, yes, but I'm not too worried about it. So if we say that one of the principles that I talk about is this variable budget, your true variable budget, if you know you need to spend £64 million buying the very basic team because of team composition requirement, it means you've got a variable budget of 36 million. Okay. Haaland has taken up 10.5 of that variable budget, which is 29%. Like that, as one player, you know. If you simplify it and you say, okay, it's about 20 points per million on a projected forecast score of 300 points. So it says, what at the start of the season, this was it, Chris. What do I think Haaland will get reasonably? Well, he might break the record, the all-time record that's never been beaten, that's never been superseded since Salah got 303 back in 16-17 season. Could I see Haaland doing that? Yeah, I could. Do I think he'll break it massively? No, I don't. I reckon it'll be around 300 points. 300 divided by the 15 mil. It's about 20 points per million. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can perma-captain him, and that gives you your 40 points per million, which is okay. That's similar to what Kane was doing back in the day, or what Salah's done. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But what those guys never did was take up 30% of your team composition variable budget. And then you listen to a lot of the conversations that were taking place. Exactly as Harvey, you just said it, Harvey. This expectation of base players, 5 millions, 5.5s, taking up the slack and actually return. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, when I looked at it in a little bit of detail, I took Havertz as an example. Haaland to Havertz, what does that feel like? You know, why would I choose Haaland? Okay, the points per million works out about 23 for Havertz, which is negligible compared to what Haaland's going to do, because you know you're getting 300 points. But Havertz takes 9% of your variable budget, so you've still got 91% of the variable budget to spend right across that team, as opposed to 70. It's that notion which led me to where I am. I've now wildcarded, never brought him in, having watched him get 10 goals. I've many wildcarded, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, after last week's information about Diaz, and I've still never brought him in, because I just can't see the numbers just don't stack up for me to bring him into the team once you forget the name.
Yeah. Do you feel like that? I think there's an over-reliance at the moment. It's like on the, what I might call, like, let's say the 6.5 million forwards and below. Yeah, everyone seems to think that Wood is amazing. Wood's just Wood's like this every year. Like he might get 10 goals this season.
1 and 2 at the moment.
Yeah. And I think Wood is a great player as your third striker. He's not your second. And there's a lot of teams out there with him as their second.
What's become really interesting for me is the notion that those people that don't have Haaland in the last 2 weeks are being lucky.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite. I think everyone that has Haaland has been incredibly lucky. He's overperforming his non-penalty XG by 3.5. He's, in terms of variance to return, he's massively over-returned. Yeah. And yet there seems to be a notion across the community that because he's had 2 blank game weeks, that everybody that doesn't have him has been lucky. I think it's the opposite.
Well, I think grass is greener, isn't it? So whichever side of the fence you sit on, you feel hard done by, you know. And also, where are you getting that sway of opinion from Twitter and places like that? It's like,
absolutely,
is
the
that
big
a
thing for
reliable
me,
guide of people's actual emotions? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit more nuanced in
I think
reality.
the last bit for me on that would be when I set the team up, and to answer the original question on the picking partner, I wanted two people. I wanted Salah and Palmer, because if you look at the numbers, if you look at Palmer from when he started playing for Chelsea, he is on target to beat Salah's number, and that hasn't stopped. So I thought, if someone's going to get 300 points this season, it's probably Palmer. So if I have Salah and Palmer, I've got a choice between two people every week, and that's not bad. And I prefer that to just having to have Haaland. So yeah, I kind of looked at it. I looked at it in that way, and I thought. And then when the season started, I thought, oh my God, I've got Palmer, and if he scores, he's almost a differential. It's like, and I never saw that coming at the end of last year. So yeah, that was big.
Palmer has added another layer to the whole argument of no Haaland, hasn't he? I mean, I think once you've got alternatives that are captainable, then actually the whole thing becomes less of an issue. If at the start of the season I don't think we knew enough. We didn't know about Palmer. We didn't really know if Saka was going to come back on fire. So Salah and Haaland were pretty safe picks at the beginning. But I think what you're saying is really, really interesting about as we go forward throughout the season. Is there opportunities there clearly are opportunities to remove him. So it's as and when it's when you do it, isn't it? And the other thing is, I think you look at the fixtures, and I'm a total fixtures nerd on fantasy. I look at fixtures more than anything, and I know you are. That's why it's good to have a conversation about it, because I look at the next 4 for City, and I think, well, I'm obviously going to keep Haaland for those, and then it's when that's when it gets interesting after that. But from what you're saying, it's like, well, you can find the differences every week. So it's really interesting, and I think what people are thinking about.
I think if you spend £15 million on a player, he is your captain. If you're not going to captain him, sort of more than 4 out of 5 times, don't have him.
You shouldn't own him. Yeah, I agree with that. And that also, he needs to keep the form up to be that option.
So it strangles you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but it also means you have the highest upside potential each week. That's the thing that I think some managers look at, and it's like, put yourself in the position. Yeah, no worries. Well, we're gonna move. We're gonna come back to that. But before we do, we're gonna chat about our teams, or our preferred teams. Now, Ronnie, you're a Celtic man, but you're also partial to a bit of Bournemouth, and I think you've lived there for a while and gone to watch the team quite a lot over the years. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, been in Bournemouth for 18 years.
Oh, well, that's plenty long enough. You can tell your accents. You've got a little bit of Bournemouth in there. Okay, so we're going to talk about club matters then, just for a bit, and then we'll come back to the FPL stuff, because that's really interesting again. So, Ronnie, first question on Andoni Iraola, the Bournemouth manager. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. I love what he's done, actually. I like watching his team. I like watching Bournemouth now under him. So what do you sort of think he's done, or what do you think he's done to the team, and how do they play?
So it's a great question. It's been a complete turnaround for Bournemouth, just in terms of style of play altogether. The club's gone through a massive transition over the last 2 years in terms of what does good look like. Good no longer looks like survival in the Premier League. And that's clear in terms of the investment and the coach and the players that they're now bringing into the club. So I mean, what Iraola has brought is high press, high tempo style of football. Don't get a moment on the ball. The players are clearly drilled after having a season of bedding in. They are clearly drilled on what their triggers are, when the press should and should not take place, and what that team structure looks like, both in possession and out of possession. And it's a joy to watch. It's quite fantastic. The only thing I would say is what it's easy for me to say, Iraola really chases down is high quantity of turnover high up in the pitch, which then generates opportunity, you know, for attacking outcome. But what that's doing in terms of a risk, you know, risk reward, is that it tends to leave Bournemouth slightly exposed on the in the left back, right back position. And in fact, I've seen it quite often now where a ball played over the top down either line will go over the top of either Smith at the right back or Kerkez in the right back position. Now Kerkez has got the pace more often than not to get back in, but Smith really struggles. So in terms of opportunity, I suppose, if you are looking for players up against Bournemouth, I would definitely be looking at capable left wingers, a la Gordon playing off the left or something, you know. Martinelli, there's opportunity there to really get at Bournemouth in the right positions. But style of football is excellent.
He reminds me of Klopp a bit when he first came to Liverpool. The high press, you know, let's be serious, how often were people talking about Trent being exposed? But it's that similar thing. I wonder if there's a similarity there, or or whether
that's a great observation, Harvey. Very possibly. It's a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's made made Bournemouth much harder to play against, for sure. You know, used to be a bit of a soft touch. You know, you didn't mind playing Bournemouth, and I think now you know you're going to be in for a game when you play them. So Harvey, you mentioned Liverpool. Obviously, you are a Liverpool fan. So we've got some questions about Liverpool for you, and the first one's about Gravenberch, because he's become a key player this season. So I just wondered what's changed with him. What's his role in the team?
I think now we've had a bit of time to look at Slot. We get obsessed by, you know, number 6s, number 8s, number 10s, that kind of thing, particularly in the midfield area. I think Slot's ideal formation has 3 Xavi Alonsos in it. I don't think he sees someone winning the ball back, someone scoring the goal. I think he sees 2 people working hard and being able to play on the ball, very much like passing ability, higher than tackling ability. And I think Gravenberch fits that beautifully. And I think that's helped him. I think that's helped him come into the side. And I think that's been brilliant for us. If we get somebody who's more defensive orientated, they may well come in, but I don't think it's at the expense of Gravenberch. I think he likes that type of player, and I think that's why often when we see the 3 in midfield, even with Szoboszlai, he might be doing things slightly further up the pitch, but he actually does quite a lot very similar. He's running around just as much, he's intercepting just as much, he just intercepts, tries to do it higher up the pitch. And I think that's kind of changed the way we play, because we're a little bit more Man City now. We're a little bit more, you know, death by passing, slower build up. We're not going to let you have the ball to kill us with. And I didn't really see that coming. I'm quite impressed by how it's working. But, you know, as many are saying, I think the next 5-6 games will tell us. You know, we've got them all.
yeah, absolutely. But you've had a good start. But
we have. I think 2 things to notice. I think FPL wise from it would be Liverpool's defence is going to be real, legit. So I think your 2 defences this year are going to be Arsenal's and Liverpool's. And I think the way he plays the winger, so your Salah Diaz position, is more 2019 Salah, which is it's much more like get the ball run at somebody, be more involved, rather than really hold your wing the way he was under the last sort of couple of years of Slot. So I think Salah's going to get bigger, not smaller.
Okay, and if I just got on the Salah thing, so obviously he's the best pick. That goes without saying, but he's the most expensive. After him, where are you going? And is there an alternative?
Oh, I think it's going to be really hard this year, I'm afraid. I've stayed away from it for that reason. I think particularly with the fixtures that are coming up and Europe now coming in, I think we're going to see, you know, 2 weeks of Diaz, 2 weeks of Gakpo, I think we're going to see a couple of weeks of Jota and a couple of weeks of Nunes. And depending on, weirdly, what the bigger game is, I think the strong team, the one that we see at the moment in the league with Diaz, with Jota, with Salah, I think they'll play against your Leipzigs and your Madrids and your games that we have to win, and, you know, your Man City and your Arsenal. But in the other games, I wouldn't be surprised if anybody but Salah gets shifted.
And those are the games,
I'd almost expect it.
Yeah, those are the games you want them for.
Okay. And I want that as well, because Salah's numbers in these fixtures are brilliant. So
yeah, exactly. You want him playing, don't you? For that money, I mean, he's expensive as well. Okay, back to Roni, and a Bournemouth player I want to talk about is the new signing, Evan Nielsen. I think you signed him from Porto. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. 40. I think the total value of the deal was 40 million, 31 million up front for Bournemouth. As I said,
that's huge.
Club are going through a complete restructure at the moment in terms of expectation, but that's massive money for a club like Bournemouth. And not just the money. I think one of the real I suppose surprises out of that deal was the player's decision to come. You know, I know he's coming to the Premier League. Bournemouth are a provincial club, you know, we always have been. And this is a guy that scored 60 goals in 150 odd matches for Porto. You know, it's 20 odd assists in his time there. This is a serious player with some serious pedigree. And I tell you what, I don't know if any of you seen it, the goal he took against the Saints 2 weeks ago on the half volley. I mean, what a finish. That's a player that knows what he's doing and knows where goal is. I mean, the only thing from an FPL perspective I would say is that he's definitely been eased into the team at the moment. It's a managed transition into the Premier League and this type of football. But I think he's got everything he's shown is that he's got the technique, the wherewithal, and the pedigree to perform at a really high level. It's definitely one to watch.
Okay, maybe when Bournemouth's fixtures ease up a little bit because they're about to go into 3 or 4 nasty ones, aren't they? So one to watch, one to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Definitely there's potential there, I think, just because of the money and the fact he's played at the higher level and the higher level, I mean, Champions League and all of that kind of stuff. Okay,
sorry, Chris, just on that, just as a point there, obviously we've got Semenyo there as well, and Semenyo started up top, out of position. He's now back to his kind of traditional role on the right hand side. Areola plays a very similar style of football to that which Ange Postecoglou plays, whereby, and that's a known from my Celtic affinity. You know, it's about getting the wingers on top of the opposition, compress the play, and then have the wingers run beyond the striker. If it continues the way it is, I would fully anticipate that you'll start to see returns for Semenyo on the right. The left-hand position varies between Kluivert to Tavernier, but for Semenyo on the right in terms of assists, and for Evan Nielsen in the centre, I think it's the style of football that's going to dictate what the future performance levels look like there. A la Brennan Johnson in terms of Semenyo.
Yeah, definitely. I think Semenyo is one that's already appeared on our radars for sure. I think Harvey might have him already in his team, or maybe in his team that he wants to get. We'll come to that.
I found another one as well. But,
who's that?
Buonanotte.
Oh, yeah. We'll come to that.
You've seen his numbers. I can't believe people are not talking about him.
Hold on, we'll come to him. Before we get to the FPL stuff, we've got one more question on Liverpool, Harvey, and it's just regarding Alisson, who we know now is out for 6 weeks, which is obviously a big blow for Liverpool, but that means opportunity in FPL terms, and that means Kelleher is going to come in. Is that right? And
it should be Kelleher. Kelleher's the main guy.
Okay, and he's 4.4, and I know you've got rough fixtures, but you're still arguably best defence in the league, maybe second best defence in the league.
I'd still say second best because we've not been tried as much as Arsenal. But I would expect us to keep a couple of clean sheets in the next 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So is he an option? Well, he is an option at that price, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of looking at him, if I can, as my second keeper, because to have Liverpool's keeper as my second keeper means, if I think Raya's going to have a bad day, I can throw Kelleher in, and you never know. But I do think he's an option. I wouldn't have him as your main option, because in the next sort of 5 games, we're probably going to concede in at least 3 of them. So, and there are probably better options points wise. But I think he's going to be playing for us for, 4-6 weeks maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's an option. I think probably more if you're on wildcard than anyone else making a move this week is probably not making a goalkeeper move. Unless you're very fortunate and you haven't got any other
transfer
issues.
happy.
So we've got a few minutes left. So I want to look at our teams for the weekend ahead. So let's bring up the first team. So I think this is Roni's team. Is that right, Ron?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the one.
So is that how we're set up for the weekend?
Yeah, for the moment. I should say that this team was born out of a -4 last week after 4 transfers based upon the late Diaz information.
Okay. So if you want to go through your team for the people listening on the pod, and also just before you do that, maybe just tell us about your big move. Was it 4 moves last week?
Yeah, 4 moves. Yeah. So all within the last 2 minutes, as we got the Diaz confirmation that he would not be starting. The reality was, I had a plan for this week, international break. It should have been 4 free transfers. Would have transitioned into exactly the moves that I made. The Diaz information just brought it forward a week and cost me 4 points, unfortunately. So team makeup at the moment, we have Rhea in goals. Still really happy with that decision back at wildcard time, an extra 1 million from Henderson, but I've not looked back. I already had Rico Lewis in the team. He's currently playing out of position. He's not going to always play. However, I've got more than enough on the bench there between Rodgers and Fies, with Matsui there as well, to come in if he doesn't start. Really good option. Pedro Porro, it's an interesting one. Pedro Porro is probably the one that's the most unknown in my team moving forward. I've flip-flopped and taken him out. He's been there since game week 1, so he has made the cut on wildcard and mini wildcard, and he's still retained his position. I look at his stats and I think the attacking returns are due to come, And then the change this week was, or last week was, Vardio coming in. It was always the plan. He came in for Trent to release some funds for what we'll discuss in a moment. But it was very much about fixture difficulty rating. Looking at City's next 5 fixtures, that's why we have the double up in there, Lewis and Vardio. I would be distraught if I don't get at least 3 defensive returns out of the next 5 games for City. So touch wood, here's hoping.
Okay, and the midfield?
Yeah, so the midfield really strong in there, similar to Harvey's comments. I think that's where the value is this season. So we've got Saka, we have Palmer, who just came in last week. We have Salah in there, and we have Mbeumo also playing out of position. I cannot see by Mbeumo just now. I did have Diaz in there, and Diaz made way for Palmer. I'll touch on that in a moment, but that was primarily based upon the news he wasn't starting, but I'd already booked in the Diaz transfer out, believe it or not, when everyone else was buying him in. I'll explain in a moment the rationale there. So Saka captain, as it stands, just as we touch on him, and that's primarily due to the information I just gave a second ago there. I fully anticipate Arsenal are going to exploit Bournemouth's press because they have better players and they will exploit it in the wing-back positions. I have no doubt. So Saka captain for the week. And then up top, we have Havertz, someone I've already mentioned. He's doing really well for me this season, really happy there. Solanke has just come in for Watkins, actually. That was more a decision around team composition and team value, money. If I wanted Palmer, someone had to make way. And then I brought in Archer. Now, Archer was it was interesting, Archer. He's a bit of a make weight in terms of an enabler. However, I think Harvey's going to touch on it. His stats are excellent for the season. He's just really underperformed. He's had a really few opportunities, and I think he just needs a little bit of confidence. He scored last week against Arsenal, scored the opener. And I'd like to think that could be that could be the start of some good things for Archer, but we'll see. And in fact, he's taken the position off of Rodgers for this week. Rodgers been away to Fulham.
Yeah, it's good. I think that's good. Yeah, and Rodgers has only returned once. And, he's in everyone's team. He's only returned once.
His stats have
And
been
it's
good there
just-
as well.
his stats are good, but I look
Plays in a much better team.
after 5-6 weeks, you look at form for me. And
how much is
don't
Archer?
get me wrong,
Is he
say again?
4.5? How much is Archer? Is he 4.5?
5.
5.
Okay, so he's
Yeah.
about the cheapest playing striker
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you know,
And it was all about prioritising the midfield, much to the conversations earlier. Saka, Palmer, Salah in there gives that variety that
That's
Harvey
right.
spoke to about who do you want to be on and when do you want to be on them.
so your bench is Rogers, Face, and Mazraoui, and
Correct.
then you've got is that Fabianski as your second?
Yeah,
sort of
Fabianski's second
with
keeper.
Raya.
Yeah.
And then, so what are you thinking this week? Then are you planning to? What have you got moves in mind, or?
No, so at the moment I don't expect to make any changes. I'll be waiting on information around Saka, Havertz. They're both highlighted at the moment as risks. However, I've got no interest at this time in making any changes, and in fact, this team should see me through for the next 3 game weeks at least, based upon the plan. What I would say is this: there's an interesting piece here, and I mentioned it within the WhatsApp group. When I would talk about team value, and it's about the realisation of the investment funds for a different type of asset. So if you take Diaz, I'd managed to make 600,000 on Diaz. So let's say alone, Diaz, forget the rest of my team. My team would have been at 100.6 million in terms of value. So by selling him, I've taken a hit of 300,000. So my team value, forgetting everyone else, would be 100.3 million. But I've now got the 0.3 to invest in a different type of asset that may be a more expensive asset, or it may be I'm just spreading the wealth a little bit in terms of the team composition piece. But I find that interesting because you see these teams that get to 103.5 million around Christmas, but there's no realisable financial investment out of it because you have the same players and you're wedded to them. You won't lose a Diaz, Yeah. So I find it really interesting, that part of the game, in terms of the economy and the structure of how you reinvest for those premium players as the season progresses. I don't know what you think about it, guys, in terms of the notion of it.
I'm in on it. I also think that when you get to now, having a 0.2 in the bank, I think that it's one of the best things you can have because it stops you thinking I must make a transfer because of a price rise. And that ultimately ends up saving you points, because how many times have you made a transfer because price rise and then the guy gets injured, and then the guy doesn't play, or it's misinformation, he isn't starting, or whatever it is, and you're trying to jump on something. And I think that if you've got the money in the bank, you're like, well, I'll just see how it goes and I'll get them anyway, and the 0.1 doesn't matter, the points do. And that's how I sort of look at it. So
Yeah, I think the pricing thing is interesting. I mean, I think I changed my views on the pricing over the years, and probably I'm just a bit of someone now who goes down the route of, if I get the best players who are doing well, then I don't need to worry about the pricing because everything's going in the right direction. And but I don't try and overreact to stuff. But I do think it's a whole nother facet of the game, and definitely people have got different styles, and then it's another one where I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think there is an argument that if you can get to 105 million, with say 7 weeks to go, you have got a bit of extra money in the bank to be able to buy a different player. But you, like Ronnie said, you've maybe had to stick with those players the whole season, where other players have managed to dip in and out and hit patches of form. So it's just not as simple as to say one way or the other it works. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, and it's like all these things. It's about managing the various sides of the coin and trying to keep the team going in the right direction. Because if you get a green arrow every week, then essentially you're doing the right thing, and you're going to finish on a good rank. But it's easier said than done. Okay, so Ronnie, that was really good to look at your team. Now we're going to move on to Harvey. Harvey, we've got your team for as it is for this week. Is that right? Is that it there? Yeah, I think so.
This is the team now, without me wildcarding, and I echo Ronnie's feelings about Munoz in the back there. He is someone who I'm definitely going to be changing. And Minty was a pick right at the beginning who I liked, and it's funny, he was 5 million or 5.5 million. I thought if you get 2 returns in 6. That's 5.5 million. I'll take it. He's done better than that, so I liked it. But I think their fixtures are. I think his particular bit is he's got a minute's risk now because there's a challenge to his position, and I think that they're getting a bit tougher. So I might get rid of him, and I am considering changing Rodgers as well. So, but
have you got like a move that's like 3 moves or a wild card? Is that where you're sitting at the moment?
So Minty to Buonanotte, I would do Muniz to Lewis. I'm definitely doing those 2.
Right. Okay.
And that would just set me up for the next couple of weeks, because I think the next opportunity to wildcard might be sort of 10 or 12, week 10 or 12.
Yeah, I mean, there's another international break, isn't there, around then?
So if I can get there, and I've got 5 free transfers as well, so I'm in a decent position on that, and I can react to things. But I don't want to go throwing my babies out with the bathwater. And as you said, I mean, a lot of people are wildcarding to take advantage of fixtures. And actually, I'll do a point on that. Salah at the moment, his next games would be Chelsea, Brighton, Arsenal, Villa and City. And most of those are flagged as like red fixtures. But I always look at it like FPL is about players. It's not about teams. Liverpool might have a tough fixture. Salah versus Chelsea, 7 returns in 13. Versus Brighton, 15 returns in 14. Arsenal, 12 returns in 14. Villa, 9 returns in 10. City, 11 in 14. These are not bad fixtures for Salah.
It's true. Well, there's no such thing as a bad fixture.
Exactly. So I look at it like that. So I'm looking at, do I need to move him? And same for Palmer. You look at Palmer's numbers, and if you use the points predictors over the next 5 weeks, Salah and Palmer are due to outscore Saka, who everyone's trying to get in. So I look at it and I just go, well, I would love to have Saka. I'd like Roni's midfield, frankly. I'd love Saka, but I'm not moving Salah or Palmer out to get him. So to me, it's and I'll probably die. It's what I'm like. It's a sword I'll probably die on come week 20. It would have been, that was a good start, Half. Now you're in 19th millionth. But I do believe at the moment until a proper template turns up where I know who it is I can rely on every week, I'm quite happy with where this is.
Okay. Well, we need to go through your team. So are you able just to read through it and then
I can, yeah. So I've got Raya in goal, straight up. You looked at the beginning of the season, you've got the best defense. He's 5.5 million for the best defense. He gets bonus points. It's not a hard decision. Raya was my starting guy, and then I don't have to think about keepers and swapping them. I looked at the other options, and frankly, I thought I can't see Brentford doing anything defensive wise. So I thought I don't want Flecken, and if I go for Henderson, I can't see anyone who I'd twin him with, and they're not going to outscore Raya. It's worth the million, so that's where I went that way. I've got Muniz. He was purely to cover everyone having Henderson, and weirdly, I wanted a defender at 5 million so that I could move to somebody else quickly, and weirdly, he's just sat there. Then I've got Saliba.
He's going to be Lewis, isn't he? So,
yeah, he's going to be Lewis. Yeah. So I've got Saliba and I've got Trent.
Nice.
That makes sense because I haven't got Haaland. My decent defender can be Trent. Salah and Buemo, Palmer are the main points getters, I suppose you might say at the moment. And then I've got Rodgers and Minty.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got up front.
You might scroll down a bit. That's it.
I was going to say,
amazing.
I've got Solanke, Watkins, and Pedro as my strikers. I really like Pedro as a striker. I mean, he basically returns every other game. So his money is brilliant.
When he's fit,
But he's now out. And so he is going to be a sub. And once I've swapped the other two guys, I'll have a little bit. I've got nearly $1 million in the bank, so I will swap Pedro for probably Wood. And then when I wild card, I will handle the Hall and Barco thing. At the moment, Barco is sitting there as a third person who's £4 million and his price won't go down.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that.
And Hall's back in the team now, so at least he's fine as cover, isn't he? So.
And Hall, yeah, I was going to say Hall's back in the team, so I'll have people that play. That's fine. My backup keeper is Virginia, the Everton backup. I have no intention of him ever playing.
No.
You know, if I do wild card, I'm about 60% towards it. If I do wild card, he'll just become Kelleher.
I can see why you're not, though. I mean, those two moves you want to make, sort your 11 out. Then you could even do the Pedro to Wood move, so you've got a bit more cover, or Pedro to someone else, whoever you want.
Yeah. Or Archer as the other one.
And you still got. Are you up to 5 transfers, 3 or 4? 5. So you'd still have. You'd still have 2, even if you did those 3 moves. And I just think. And then you've got the wild card, and you can do it later on in the season. There will be another time. Do you
think I should not wild card?
Well, when you initially, I thought wild card, and then you've got the 5 transfers going through. But I can see the flip of it as well is that you do the 3 moves, so that's like a mini wild card in effect. You still got 2 free transfers, and you've got the wild card in your back pocket. That feels like in some ways a stronger play than whipping the wild card out now and then having the 5, which is still really strong, having the 5 transfers afterwards. What do you think, Ronnie? I mean, it's a position we can only dream of.
I'm absolutely with you, Chris. I think I'd be holding it. Yeah,
right.
I think you're in a really strong position.
Yeah,
that's what I'll do.
I almost couldn't believe it was possible to hold your wild card, only do 2 transfers, and not need a wild card. But you proved that it is, Harvey. So congratulations.
Yeah, and just be patient.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Well, that is where I've obviously gone wrong this season, because every move I've made has been a bit of a disaster. So
I probably should have said, pick Palmer and be patient.
Well, it's easy, pick Palmer. Then the thing with this game is you have a good start. Actually, it becomes a lot easier because you don't have to take risks. You can just play nice and sensible throughout. And if that's your game style anyway, it's actually it's a winning combo, isn't it? So let's put me up anyway. So this is no wild card, 2 free transfers, and that was a hard work to get there. And I think the first 11 is fine for this week. I really don't like DCL. I'm thinking about I'd like to get rid of him, but I've only just got him. And as you can see, my bench is a little bit worse for wear. So Mazraoui is an issue.
That is the madhouse, Chris. That is the absolute definition of the madhouse. You just bring someone in and you want them out straight away.
I know. Yeah. Well, I regret it. The moment I brought him in, before he'd even played, I started to remember why I don't like him, because he can't finish. And for me, if you have a centre forward that can't finish, it's the most frustrating thing in the world, because you get bad finishers, but then you have Dominic Calvert-Lewin actually can't finish unless it's with his head. He's fine with his head or his knee or his or whatever. But he can't finish with his feet, which is kind of important. And watching him is just so painful. I mean, I'm glad I'm not an Everton fan as well. That would do double whammy on him. But I've got Mazraoui, who's got a bloody dodgy heart. So I think he probably takes priority. So this week, I've probably got to get rid of him, I think.
Everyone at United's got a dodgy heart from what I've seen.
Well, he felt like the only pick. Well, him or Onana, really. Felt like okay picks, really.
Onana's a great pick, I have to say. Onana's a great pick.
Yeah. He was good for me last season, Onana. I think I totally didn't even consider him this season. But so, I think I'm kind of just going to do a Mazraoui to another 4.5, probably a Villa defender, something really uninteresting like that. Or a Forest defender, maybe, because quite like their numbers. And I think they've got a reasonable run coming up.
That's a good show.
So I might go for that Milenkovic. I don't mind him as an option. He's cheap. He can be benched half the games. So that's where I'm at. But the big one for me is I've got Haaland captain. So come on, Haaland. I think
I'm expecting a red arrow this week, but not going to worry about it.
Well, no, you can almost afford a red arrow. Unlike me and Ronnie, who really can't.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for both joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed chatting to you, and I hope everyone out there enjoys listening. So yeah, thank you, Harvey, for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks very much, Ronnie.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us along, Chris. That was a really interesting conversation. What I would like to do is just take the moment for a shout out, and that's Stephen Patterson and Tangerine Dreams, who have just gone top of the FFUK League. State Party was actually a friend of mine from way back. We were in the same class at school for our formative years. So and he's relatively new to the fantasy football world. He only joined FFUK, I think, 2 years ago. So yeah, fantastic outcome for him. He's flying along. So well done to Patty.
I love that. Thanks, Ronnie. It's always good to know, the names and the faces of the people in the league. So yeah, that's what it's all about. Great. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers. Good luck, guys.
Thanks, Hope. Good luck.